Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about, I believe, the teaser trailer that came out for a new movie coming out next year called If you haven't seen it already. A link to it in the description down below. But it seemed like a really interesting concept. It revolves around imaginary friends. What I thought was so interesting is, like, what immediately crossed my mind was the TV show Happy, if you've ever seen it. Like, what made me also think of it is Christopher Maloney's in it. He was also in this TV show Happy, if you're unfamiliar with it. It's based on a graphic novel with the same name, but basically it's like a blend of, like, kind of like this, of animation and live action, and basically it was kind of like a crime drama involving imaginary friends and stuff like that. But like I said, the main protagonist was played by Christopher Maloney, so seeing his name pop up in the credits made me think of that. But it also reminded me, what I think should have came to my mind first, probably because tone-wise it's probably going to be the same, is Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. That should have been the first thing that came to my mind. But it seems like, I don't know whether Ryan Reynolds is playing he's actually an imaginary friend too, or is he just someone that he's bringing on, like, I hope I'm not butchering her name. Is it Kaylee Fleming? I hope I'm not saying her name wrong, but she played Judith in The Walking Dead, or an older version of Judith in The Walking Dead after the time skip. So I don't know if she's like a new assistant he's bringing in, maybe because she's a child herself, like her powerful imagination makes her suitable for this job. Maybe he took upon this job when he was a kid and now he's older, trying to find his successor. I was almost wondering if he's an imaginary friend too, but it feels like he's just a human. But I think he's probably been doing his job for a while and he's just trying to find his successor. Maybe that's kind of what this story revolves around. I'm straight up calling them ifs as a shorthand for imaginary friends, which I think is cute. There's also an episode of Supernatural, may even been like 2 or 3 episodes, I can't remember off the top of my head, that revolve around, like, imaginary friends. I really like the concept of, like, right, once you're older, your imaginary friend kind of disappears, and so it's up to you, like, this new imaginary friend to pass on to another kid to find a new home. I think the episode of Supernatural kind of revolved around that a little bit. Because once you're older, no longer need your imaginary friend, they kind of move on. Like, it's a job, and so they move on to the next person, the next kid that needs an imaginary friend. So I like, I think it's going to be really interesting kind of getting into understanding how that whole thing works in this universe. Like, auditioning friends, imaginary friends who maybe are, like, looking for kids to believe, and why they specifically, like, why Ryan Reynolds' character specifically has this job. Like, why is it up to him? Like, did he get it from his predecessor? Like, is this a job that just passes from person to person to person to person? Like, how did this all start, type of situation? I'm wondering, will we even get into, like, deep lore like that? But stuff like that is what I'm kind of curious about. But I mean, it just seems like a fun and cute movie that I think it's a really, really interesting concept. Like I said, it reminds me of all these different things, and I'm really curious to see how this movie takes that concept and how it goes about it. Because even, like I said, even the way it's presenting itself is different from the examples I'd given before of Happy or Foster Home for Imaginary Friends, or even the Supernatural, because some of those, like Happy and Supernatural, have a darker tone. Obviously, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends had a more, like, obviously it was a kid's cartoon, so it had a more lighter tone to it, so it just feels like it's going to be that. Because I'd assume, I didn't look it up, but I'd assume this is either PG, at best PG-13. It doesn't, I'd even probably, most of my money would bet on it being PG. Because we see Bobby Monahan at one point in the trailer, and the big purple monster, he's, like, touching his shoulder, because I'm assuming that was his kid beforehand. So I'm curious, like, how much of that we're going to see over the course of the movie, of, like, some of these imaginary friends checking in on their friends, of, like, okay, I haven't been around you since you were a kid, and sadly the aspect of, like, that childlike wonderment, you lose it. The world kind of beats that out of you when you have to kind of go into the real world, and I think losing that innocence and maybe kind of finding a little bit of childlike wonderment back, like finding some element of that joy and bringing it to your life. Not like, just like how tough it is, for an imaginary friend to see, like, oh, like, my buddy who I've known since a kid, I haven't been around you in so long, or maybe I have, and I've checked on you from time to time, but it just, because you see Bobby Monahan's character just seems like he's down, and just, like, right, it seems like he's working a kind of maybe 9-to-5 job, and it just, it's just probably the thing of, like, life beats you down. You get what I'm saying, where you just kind of lose a bit of that innocence. It kind of, because, I mean, at some point you just have to grow up, and you kind of let that kid inside of you die when you become an adult or you get older, because it's just, there's no place in the real world for that. So I think diving into that's going to be a really interesting concept to kind of see how they handle that. Like, is that just going to be through Bobby Monahan's like purview, or will we get to see the other imaginary friends, like, you know, them keeping up with their friends, the people they were imaginary friends for when they were kids? Did they is the whole concept, the fact is that there was no operation ahead of time to be like, oh, you pass on to this next kid. Like, it's just, hey, once these imaginary friends were left behind, they were just like out and about living their lives until someone came in and made this whole thing an operation and tries to get them, like, you know, trying to put on this, you know, show to see like, okay, what type of kid would be best fit for this particular imaginary friend, kind of like almost being like this imaginary friend, like it's like a friendship site where it's like, okay, you know, when you're like looking on a dating site for a significant other, well, in this case, it's like setting up imaginary friends with the kids that kind of perfectly match. So like I said, it's gonna be fun to see and interesting to see how they handled a lot of those concepts and elements. But obviously these are just some of my thoughts. I'd love to get to know yours in the comments down below. What did you think about the teaser trailer? Like, it was more of a vibe and feel and giving you a general concept of the movie without giving you too many details. But what are some things you want to see in the movie? What are some things you expect to see in the movie? Just let me know your thoughts. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.